Hello there. You're watching the Pigskin preview presented by our good friends at PrizePicks. I'm Nick Roush. He's Adam Luckett, and we're getting you ready for Week 4 slate of college football following a 4-2 week here by the consortium. We got another list of locks ready to go. I've even got a bonus pick, an autoplay for the people. Got some great windows of watching for folks, and we've got a great slate, Luckett. Next week is when things really get cooking with conference games, but there's still a few big-time marquee matchups. And for Kentucky fans, it's great because we got the nooner, and that frees us up for the rest of the day to be able to enjoy the slate. So I'm fired up, ready to rip and roar here in mid-September.
Yeah, and for those of you all on KSR Plus, you saw some of our trends that we posted earlier this week. Post those every Wednesday, and there's a bunch of interesting ones here, Nick, with some matchups. You got some rivalry games, Iowa, Minnesota playing for the Bronze Pig. You've got Josh Heupel's reunion in Norman. You've got some conference games starting to heat up in the Big 12. Obviously, there's a big one in Stillwater. And you've got a big one in the ACC as well, just down the road. So, and then you got some interesting non-conference games, like random ones like Rutgers, Virginia Tech. And so we've got a fun little weekend. Another the Iron Skillet is another rivalry game this weekend, TCU, SMU. So a fun weekend on tap, and excited to get this going. And now we're in the part of the season where conference games start happening and everything starts to heat up. And I'm not sick of the bubble watch yet, but with each time I see that come out, I'm like, are we really doing bubble watch when teams are 3-0?
It's Joe Lenardi bracketology in August. It's like,
Yeah.
just let's chill out a little bit. But let's talk about some of those marquee matchups before we get into our picks. Is this the portion of the program where you want to pull up that tweet, Mr. Luckett?
Yeah, I mean, the big game is Boomer Sooner versus Big Vol Energy. Nick, I don't like Tennessee has been a wagon, right?
Right.
This line it kind of open. I know you got it early, but it kind of opened at 6.5, 7, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's been at 7.5. Vegas is willing to take a bath here. Ben Fox tweeted earlier this week, who is kind of on the gambling beat. At least this is at just DraftKings, but you have to imagine it's like this at most books, since most of these books are all around the same price. 95% of the money is on Tennessee -7.
It's a lot of money.
And this line, again, it's not moving.
Yeah, I've seen it at 7.5, which I can't imagine laying that. With the Vols, like you said, I got them at 2.5 as an early line, which I think can get there. But the defense is good. The Oklahoma defense is good. And I know they haven't seen anything like that, but Nico hasn't seen anything like that. It's his first game on the road as a starting quarterback. So, yeah, this is going to be a challenging task. It's going to be a juiced-up atmosphere. Should be a fun game. The reason why I was really confident in that 2.5 is fading Oklahoma's offense as much as anything, and Jackson Arnold, who is going to go up against one of the better front fours, one of the better pass rushers in all of college football. If anything, like it should, wouldn't you be leaning under here? Because I do think with all of the public money, you don't want to be a square and ride with the public on a touchdown road favorite. So doesn't it feel like the under is kind of the move, or it ends up being more of a slobber knocker than folks might expect?
What's that total? Like 58?
Yeah. 57.5, 58.
Yeah, I definitely see that. To me, Nick, how does Tennessee win games? Track meet.
Mm-hmm.
So if they win, they're probably covering. Part of me,
you ready to ride that money line dog?
I think they're telling you they think Oklahoma's got a really good chance to win this game, and I think that's why the line is where it's at. That's just my hunch there. Now but this is the first one that we've had. We usually get like 4 of these a year, and usually they go like 3-1. So this might be the one they just totally whiff on. But most weeks they try to get it close to the
real number. Yeah.
Especially a game like this, Nick, that is getting hammered betting wise. This is probably the most bet game of the weekend, I would imagine.
And you've got two very rabid online fan bases. It's prime time. Like, this is our first enormous conference matchup of the season in all of college football, really. I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, biggest SEC early season matchup so far. First SEC game for Oklahoma. The only issue I have is just because I'm with you, but eventually they're going to slip. They're going to slip a couple explosive past him with those wide splits. I mean, that's the part for me.
Can Oklahoma score is the question in this game.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Another thing you have to be cautious about, like the Kentucky-Florida thing, what we saw last year. Like, is Oklahoma just been sitting on stuff because they haven't played anybody, right? Because they knew they didn't need to.
Yeah.
That's something you have to wonder. That's not always true, but that's what happened. Like, Kentucky was obviously seemed like they were sitting on some stuff until they went and played Florida and kind of unleashed it. That's just an example. So I probably won't even sprinkle anything on it. I had Tennessee written on my sheet this week for most of the week, and then it just got there, and the line didn't move much. Like, I almost would have felt better if it moved to like 10, and I was like, oh, everyone's seeing what's about to happen, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to balance the money out. But it's caught my attention here early in the week, and very interested to see how that plays out. Because if you bet Oklahoma, you're either gonna be the smartest man in the room,
or the dumbest,
or a clown. Yeah,
no in between. But if you've been following our prize picks as of late, you're not a clown. Ripped off 2 in a row. That's exactly right. And this week, the angle we're taking, we're fading young quarterbacks starting their first true road game. So, Nico, I'm a Leva playing quarterback. I know that's not how you say it. I don't care. Nico, less than 251.5 passing yards at Oklahoma, and Dylan Raiola less than 220.5. Those are two squares I'm intrigued by. If I win, I get 3x. And you can also hit that Caleb Williams square throughout the month of September. If he gets 1 passing yard, you add that square to your weekly drawing, and you'll juice your goose when you're playing with PrizePicks. PrizePicks, it's the best daily fantasy sports app out there. It's a lot of fun. You got our examples right there, but you have them across all kinds of sports. I've sprinkled some on the NFL. It's a lot of fun. You just see their totals. You go more or less on the number. We got there with Demi Sumokarmbe last week. You can even get some different numbers too. They've got the green face or the red face. PrizePicks, it's a fun way to play. And what else is great about PrizePicks too is that when you download the app and you put in the code KSR, they're gonna throw $50 in there for you. $50. All you have to do is play $5 in lineups. So go ahead, jump on in, download PrizePicks app now. Promo code KSR, $5, and you'll get $50 when you play $5 in lineups. Promo code KSR, PrizePicks app, and PrizePicks.com. Luckett, a couple of the other intriguing matchups. You mentioned your trends that you had on KSR Plus, which UK1 will get you 2 months of that for only $1. So go ahead and sign up, see those gambling trends, and see Luckett's 10 locks that he'll share on Friday, his advanced scouting report on the Kentucky upcoming opponent. But I love that the Mississippi State, Florida ones are just a who wants to win this game, because neither of them are good in the spot. Those are the most hilarious trends in my opinion.
Yeah, Mississippi State 110-1 as a home dog since 2019. But how are you going to the window and laying near a touchdown with this Florida team after what you've seen?
You can't do it. That's just a fascinating game. Mississippi State announced an $8 million pledge to the Athletics this week too, which that amused me. It's like Kentucky announcing their NIL collective the 2 days after losing to Vanderbilt at home. Just not ideal timing. I don't know what to make of that Clemson NC State spread. NC
State's playing a backup quarterback. Grayson McCall got hurt last week. True freshman making his first start on the road against that Clemson front.
Is it over 3 touchdowns now?
It was right around 21, I think, last I checked.
Yeah,
I don't know enough about to me, that spot, you got to lay the points with Clemson.
right, or not
And
at
I
all.
don't know if they're the offense. I don't know if I trust them enough to clear that, because you would need them to feel good about that to score over 38, I think, to cover a 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I trust them enough to do that yet. So that's where I would stand on that game.
I know you've seen my. I've got one of the big game picks. Are there any other big games you would like to touch on before we get into our picks, Mr. Luckett?
Off the top of my head, I know no.
I think we cover. I think we cover them all.
Yeah. Looks like Cal has been awesome as a road dog under Justin Wilcox, and if he gets Mike Norvell to an 0-4 start, that is interesting. Arkansas Auburn is low key like a really important game for both teams in the SEC.
Yeah, that should be fun. I mean, well,
that one might be first to 38 wins.
That has a chaos factor, right?
Hank Brown is making his first real start against a power conference team in a big game. So what does it look like? The offense look like with him, and then the Hogs have been rolling with Bobby Petrino calling plays, and so Auburn's defense hasn't been great to start this year. So that could be a really fun game. And if Auburn lost there, the heat would kind of turn up on Freeze if they lose, consecutive home games that matter, right? You lose your first 2 power conference home games a year after where you lost a lot of them. You lost to New Mexico State at home. That was a big one. And then you're kind of looking at his tenure like, what are we doing here?
Here's one more question, Luckett. Would you rather lay the 28.5 points with Indiana against the Charlotte 49ers, or would you rather take Penn State and James Franklin minus 49 a week after Kent State didn't have a chance at covering that number against Tennessee?
I would lay it with Penn State.
Okay. We've got a few of those big favorite games left. Indiana.
The Kent State team is bad. Indiana has had a week of everyone telling them how great they are. They feel prime for a letdown with Coach Sig. Light them up.
A lot of it. The only reason why Penn State isn't in there for me, I still might play them, is just because getting to 50 might be a challenge for them.
Franklin runs it up, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, let's get into the big games. My first big game is the first one that could ultimately determine who's going to be in this Big 12 title game. There's 3 teams that are kind of perceived to be at the top. And Oklahoma State, the first time they played against a conference opponent, they did not look good. They needed to scratch and claw to get a win against Arkansas at home. And we all know Arkansas hasn't been great as of late. So for me, this is a trend game. This is a who do you trust. Cam Rising is back. But Cam Rising, he's great at Rice-Eccles Stadium. But how great is Utah away from there? And that's ultimately what I come down to. I trust Mike Gundy in this spot. And I don't trust Utah outside of that stadium. Utah 2-7 outright in road top 25 games. And I want to say that's the last 4 or 5 years. And in the last 10 years in toss-up games, Oklahoma State is 17-6 outright. I know you've got to get there with the 3, but I just trust Gundy to have these guys up for this game. They're a little bit more battle-tested to this point. And I don't think Utah, their defense is as vaunted as some of the Utah defenses have been in the past, where they play that Kyle Whittingham ball and they beat teams up. I don't think they're just going to come in and beat up Oklahoma State. I trust the Pokes here at home to get the job done. So give me Oklahoma State minus 2.5.
Gundy's cash in these games. Especially at these small lines or even as a dog. He's not as a dog, but you could have got him as, I believe, a dog earlier in the week. My one worry here, Oklahoma State cannot run the ball for whatever reason.
With Ollie Gordon.
Yeah. They're like 127 in rushing success rate, and they haven't really played any defensive dynamos early in this year. So is Oklahoma State going to beat Utah with Alan Bowman dropping back the pass 45 times? That would be my big worry on the Oklahoma State side. But I think the trends and all of that line up, like Oklahoma State seems like the side to play here. But when looking at the matchup, that would be my concern.
And part of it for me is when you got a new team coming into a new conference, there's going to be a few rocky moments. I think this is going to be one of them, and I don't know how. I'm done ever trusting Cam Rising, so I'm all the way out on Cam Rising for me.
Yeah, and they're saying he's not going to play.
They're saying he's going to play.
Well, they're not saying regardless, but he did interviews this week. But Kyle Whittingham won't say anything about injuries. I mean, he's probably the worst that there is when it comes to that. So you have to. So that's because remember last year going to the Florida game, everyone was like, Cam Rising playing? I guess he is. Yeah. Should I bet Florida or Utah? So yeah, I mean, but it's a big game. Like this could be a preview, definitely, of the Big 12 championship. So a big game early in the season.
Look at who you got.
Yeah, we're gonna stay local here. I believe it's the first pick, and I'm gonna take Georgia Tech minus plus 10. I think there's some places you can get that 10.5, but plus 10 at Louisville. I love everything about how this sets up for Georgia Tech. I mean, everything. Played them well last year. They play a style of ball that I think gives Louisville some issues. Louisville has not been tested, had the weird early bye week. This will be Georgia Tech's third time playing away from home. They can run the football. They have a tough quarterback, a balanced offense. I like how this sets up. It's a big step up in competition, I think, for Louisville early in the year. We're still not sure about Louisville, but I think I feel better about Georgia Tech. This is a lot of points, I feel like, to be laying in the spot. I feel like Louisville's a little overvalued here because they played two of the worst teams, and one of the worst teams in FBS and one of the worst teams in FCS, and routed them. And that was a good thing, but I feel like they're being overvalued here. And this is where Brent Key is at his best. He's 7-3 against the spread with 5 outright upsets as a double-digit underdog. He's 6-1. Georgia Tech's 6-1 ATS under Key in their last 7 meetings versus ranked foes with 5 outright wins.
It's pretty good.
Give me the Yellow Jackets. I think they got a great chance to go in there and win the game outright.
Yeah, and that's the
they should have beat Louisville last year. They outplayed them. Like if they don't fumble,
Right.
So I think this is gonna be a fun game. I think it could be a little high scoring here. But I think they're going to have, it's going to be the fourth quarter and they can win the game for sure. And I feel good about that.
The unknowns with Louisville make this so hard to handle. And it's so weird saying that in week 4. But that's what we got here. So I'm curious. I can't wait to see the turnout. I hope it's light just so we can hear them complain about traffic from a concert, keeping them away. That would be hilarious. But I'm fascinated by Louisville's first true test, and especially with Tyler Shuck. Like, how good is that dude? And
yeah,
if they're gonna cover the 10, he's got to be that dude.
Yeah, Georgia Tech's pass defense I wouldn't say is great, but it's probably respectable. So what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, we will certainly see soon. I had fun wagering on the Friday night game. I'm going back to the Friday night, and it's my PrizePicks angle where I'm kind of fading a first time, in this case, a true freshman starting on the road for the first time. Top 20 matchup between Illinois and Nebraska. The Huskers defense, I know we've been impressed with the quarterback and how they scored points. Huskers are number 3 in SP Plus defensive efficiency. Illinois is top 30. We got ourselves a Brett Bielema getting his guys geared up at home, Memorial Stadium on a Friday night. I think he's going to turn it into a rock fight. There's going to be some turnovers, some mistakes by Raiola. I don't know who's going to win this game, but I'm going to take the under, a sloppy Big Ten Friday night game filled with turnovers between Nebraska and Illinois. I mean, it isn't hard to picture Nebraska and Illinois playing an ugly game on a Friday night. It's just now they got numbers next to their name. I'm not getting twisted by those numbers next to their name. It's going to get ugly. Give me the under in Nebraska and Illinois.
Yeah, I would say both these offenses look improved to this point, but let's see what happens when they get into Big Ten play.
Mm-hmm.
Not to give it away, but this game will be in the column.
Oh,
and I have a side here.
Oh, a side, not a total play. Interesting.
And I'm not one to lay double or two possessions in a Big Ten game, so take it that as what you will.
Hey, the Scott Frost stink still ain't off the Nebraska Cornhuskers. It's going to take a while to do that. What's your second pick?
Yeah, going to the Lone Star State, little Big 12 action. Texas Tech hosting Arizona State. I'm going to lay the field goal here with the Red Raiders. Nick, Arizona State, I think they're not as good as a record, I would say.
Man, Kenny Dillingham's got him playing frisky, though. I've watched 2 Arizona State games. I never thought I would. Granted, it's because one was on a Thursday and one was after dark. But to your point, yeah, they beat the crap out of Mississippi State. So what? Everybody's beating the crap out of Mississippi State.
Like that Mississippi State win lost a lot of luster in 1 week. And they jumped out on Mississippi State, but Mississippi State almost was in the game in the fourth quarter. And then Texas State should have won that football game.
Yeah, that sucked. I was on Texas State.
So
they should have won that.
Texas State outgained them. They were the better team in that game, I thought. So do I think Texas State is better than Texas Tech? No. I look at this matchup. Arizona State struggles to throw the football. Texas Tech's offense can absolutely go. They're rolling up a ton of yards and scoring a ton of points. At home, it's a big game. They already have a loss to Washington State. In a game they outgained Washington State. Things just got sideways on them. I think it's a big moment for Texas Tech at home. Big 12 home game, they need the win. And I think Texas Tech probably gets out to win. I think this has blowout potential here in Lubbock. So give me the Red Raiders. I'll lay the short price. I think Arizona State's a little overvalued right now, and I think Texas Tech's a little undervalued. I think in a few weeks we're going to see Texas Tech's offense, they can really go. And I'm going to jump on them here. I think this is a good price for them. So I'm going to lay the points with the Red Raiders here, -3.
Yeah, and Arizona State's best offense is just turning around and handing the ball off to Scatterbo. Yeah, love that guy. Great college football player. I don't know how much he can do to carry Arizona State, though, on the road at Texas Tech. My final pick, I'm sticking with a team that served me well last week. I'm going to keep riding them. I didn't have to sweat it for a second. Kansas State is a 6-point favorite at BYU. That number, it was up at 7. It's slowly trickling down. I just don't think BYU is any good. I mean, I know they grinded out that win over SMU, but SMU just couldn't do anything in the red zone. Was it SMU or Houston? It was SMU, right? And it was just an ugly.
Against BYU, yes.
Yeah, that was one of the worst football games I've ever seen. BYU, they got so lucky in that game, and I know that Provo gets rowdy at night, but I trust Kansas State to stay ahead of the chains. They're really efficient in the run game. They're efficient defensively. I don't know how BYU is going to score. And even though Avery Johnson has some doy moments, and the after dark is certainly going to bring out some Avery Johnson moments in this game, I BYU I can't see a scenario where they can Kansas State doesn't end up pulling away at some point and winning by a touchdown or more. So give me the Purple Wildcats on the road. -6. Besides, they've already got a tough road win under their belts at Tulane. I think they're gritty enough to where they aren't going to be spooked by the atmosphere in Provo.
Yeah, BYU's pretty rough on offense. Defense is good enough to keep them in the game, but how long does that last?
Right. You feel like third quarter, a couple big touchdowns, and then they start rolling.
Kansas State didn't make the column, but it was on the list.
Boom. There you go. Well, it's on my list. Luckett, your third.
That might be. That's a classic game. If I'm up late, I'm definitely probably playing the Wildcats.
After a couple beers at that wedding, after dark
sure.
action. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Your third and final pick, Mr. Luckett.
Yeah. Again, we're in the Lone Star State Iron Skillet game here. I'm going to lay the 3 points with TCU in this rivalry matchup. I like how this sets up for TCU. Like, it's student versus teacher. Like, Rhett Lashley was Sonny Dykes' offensive coordinator at SMU. TCU has the better quarterback. They're really scoring some points, even though they lost a tough game last week and moving the football, throwing it all around over the yard. SMU offensively is really struggling on the struggle bus. Now, TCU's not very good on defense, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with TCU's offense, with Josh Hoover and TCU's passing game. So I like the Horned Frogs here to get a, and it's a big spot for them after that tough home loss. They can't really afford to lose 2 in a row. So I like TCU right here. And they've already had a road game. They played at Stanford week 1. I think that helps early, getting that road game out of the way and betting the team after they play their first one, as we've kind of talked about here.
My biggest apprehension with this one is that was a meltdown against UCF. They had no business losing that game, and they found a way to lose it. And in a rivalry game like this, where, you remember how juiced up it was when Sonny Dykes left a couple of years ago, and they rolled up on him. It was pretty easy, but I got a feeling that's going to be a pretty fiery atmosphere. And if things start going sideways, they might get a little shaky. So
yeah,
that's my only fear in this one.
Yeah, SMU had a better team last year and still couldn't beat TCU. We see this sometimes in college football. When the old assistant tries to beat his former boss, it can kind of be, it's harder to do than I think you realize. So I like the Dykes versus Lashley matchup here. I like favoring Dykes in this contest, and I think they have the better quarterback. SMU's offense has probably been the most disappointing offense in college football, or one of them. It's in the conversation for sure. So I'll take the Frogs here just because how both these teams want to play. I'm going to take the offense with the quarterback they trust and a team that can score, that I know can score points.
Luckett, it's about time for us to get out of here, but I've got one more bonus pick for the people, an auto play. I don't have stats on this. I don't care. It's the red bandana game. Boston College is hosting Michigan State, -6.5. I know it was.
They're doing it this early?
They're doing it this early, which I guess you probably should. It's kind of the first
I just thought they would do it the Louisville game because it's kind of October when it gets a little colder. It's on Friday night.
It was a little tough, but they do have it prime time. Michigan State, they have exceeded some early expectations. That win at Maryland is not looking great for my win total, but red bandana game, baby. Give me BC, the Golden Eagles bouncing back. They put a little scare on Missouri. Missouri had to really turn it on there late, and Castellanos is just a lot of fun. So I think he'll get loose here, have a few big plays. BC in the red bandana game, a little bonus pick for the people. Quick recap of our picks. I've got OK State and Kansas State covering as favorites, and the Illinois-Nebraska under at 43.5. Luckett, repeat yours again.
Georgia Tech +10 at Louisville. Texas Tech -3 against Arizona State at home, and TCU -3 at SMU in the battle for the Iron Skillet.
Let's win some money this weekend. Let's win some money, people. We appreciate you following along with the Pigskin preview. He's Adam Luckett. I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Kroger.